move over. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Remington, council member with City of Duval. You're at the City of Duval Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, March 16th, 2021. It's now 5:32 in the evening. Our first order of business is to move to our closed session for about 30 minutes where we're discussing collective bargaining. So council members, if you'll exit this meeting and move over to our closed session, we'll see you over there.
For the record, this is Jody Wyckoff, City Clerk. The closed session has been extended 5 minutes. For the record, this is Jody Wyckoff, City Clerk. The closed session has been extended 3 minutes. For the record, this is Jody Wyckoff, City Clerk. The closed session was extended 1 minute. For the record, this is Jody Wyckoff, City Clerk. The closed session was extended 1 minute.
Our committee of the whole meeting. So we're called back to order following our closed session that we had for bargaining discussions. Our next item is good of the order. Council, anything that you have for good of the order? Councilmember Hogue.
I'll try and make this really brief, but I attended a workshop with Ann McFarlane, and she is the one who teaches about parliamentary procedure. Jurassic Parliament is the name of her website. And I just thought it was really interesting because this one was focused on Zoom. And they did a survey, and over half the people that did the survey thought that Zoom meetings were not as effective. And so I just thought that was really interesting. They kind of also did some research on why. They talked about near point fatigue, because, you know, in our previous meetings, we didn't have cameras right on our faces. And it talked about spending too much time on the computer. And also it tempts us to behave badly, you know, like going and feeding the dog was one of her examples. And so I guess one of the suggestions that I got from the meeting was that maybe reviewing the length of time of our meetings would be good. Having a speaking chart, because sometimes it's hard for people running the meetings to always see people's hands during Zoom. I know our mayor and our mayor pro tem are really good at that, but having like a speaking chart that rotates was one of her suggestions. And then they recommended that we have public comments at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. So I know we've talked about that in the past, but it's something maybe to think about because of Zoom. And then she also recommends that we leave videos on during the meetings, and maybe consider having policy around that. But I just thought it was an interesting meeting. Our mayor was at the meeting as well. So that's it.
It was a good meeting.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think we all get a little fatigued with some of the Zoom meetings, but it's nice to have a tool during COVID. Anything else for the good of the order? Councilmember Naplin.
I had something that came up during the land use committee meeting, and I wanted to bring it forward. It's about, I can't remember exactly what this policy or code is. It has to do with public works and kind of like the road standards. And I don't think it's the design code. It's another area. Maybe Laura can remember what it's called. And I think Larissa had brought something forward several months ago. Laura, do you remember the name of it?
Yeah, it's the Public Works Development Design Guidelines.
Perfect. Okay. So there were some topics that, you know, kind of might fall into there that we would have interest in looking at modifying. And so I just was wondering where we are with that. I mean, some of the things are just talking about the road widths, and I don't know if this falls in there, like open spaces. Does open space count can you put a vault there? Like, what about sewer lids? Some cities don't let you play sewer lids in a play field, for safety reasons. The parking dimensions on the streets and, how wide does that have to be? Things like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know where we're at with that policy, but I'm hoping to see it again.
Director Mason, did I see your hand up? I saw one hand pop up quickly. No, okay.
I think it was Steve.
yeah.
Steve has his hand up.
Director Laniszewski, there's a hand.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Laniszewski and Councilmember Hogue. Thank you. What is this? Camera fatigue is real. So, yeah, hours and hours a day. It's mind-numbing. But anyway, Public Works. Yes, we will be. We were talking with Larissa just the last week or two about Public Works design standards, bringing them back and talking specifically. I think the majority of my estimation of council's care will be road right-of-way widths and some of those street type dimensioning. So that will be coming forthright. We have MPDES tonight, and then we have tip stuff. But yeah, it is on our to-do list. We want to get the standards updated, so Larissa knows she'll be bringing that back. So next few meetings, it certainly will be open for all discussion.
Great question. Chief Hurt, he doesn't formally have his hand up, but I know you'd like to say a word.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to say that this is like, this year's went so fast. This is officially my last council meeting. And I wanted to thank all of you for all the support you've given to me and my family, and certainly for the police department over the years. I will be back by the last week or two of June. So I will likely attend the second meeting in June, but I'm going to be taking some vacation soon. And so I just didn't want to miss out on an opportunity to thank you guys for everything you've done for me. So thank you.
We will be bringing you back for at least one more meeting, Carrie.
We will. Chief, I think on behalf of council, it's just a pleasure to have worked with you. And when I watch the reputation, especially during this last difficult year when police departments were shadowed, if you will, by a lot of questions and concerns. And our department here has received a tremendous amount of praise from our citizens for the work that you've done. And much of that goes to you for your leadership and guidance of the department, both the maintaining disciplinary standards, training, morale, so many things that mean so much to emergency services. So thank you, Chief, from all of us on council. And we do look forward after your extended vacation to bringing you back so we can roast you a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, and for the council and the public, we do plan on having as an event for Chief Hurt, but hoping that if we wait till his official retirement date towards the end of June, that perhaps we can have an outdoor gathering in person and get to celebrate his service and commitment to our community together. And I didn't even realize it was the last one. This time has come so fast, and Carrie's going to be a big presence. It's going to be missed, but he's also planned well in having Lieutenant DeBach ready to take his place. So the city is very fortunate and have benefited greatly from Chief Hurt's leadership.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think the mayor wants me to cook for that June event.
Maybe, no.
Well, thank you again, Chief. Our next government facilities consult selection from Sean Tozer at Public Works.
Good
Sean,
evening,
we'll turn
Mayor
it
and
to you.
Council. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will try to be brief and keep it moving. I know you guys have other business. So I did prepare a couple slides, and hopefully my my internet stays active. All right, so I'm assuming you guys can all see this little slide deck over here.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, so just a quick overview. I know that there was a lot of work that went into the development of this facilities assessment master plan RFP. I was not as involved in the development of it as I was once it got ready, and then kind of pushed it out for contracting and doing RFP, I guess, selections. So, but just to overview really fast, the goal in a nutshell is to see what we have, see what condition what we have is in, see if there's any critical failure points, any, what the undeferred maintenance needs are, and then start to envision what the city needs. Do our facilities as they are, could they work for us? Do we need to do renovations? Do we need to look at rehabs, tear downs, remodels, the whole gamut? And so this master plan could be a very visionary document for the city as far as really looking holistically at our entire suite of facilities and making long-term decisions on what the city needs and how it could possibly afford to do what it needs. So I won't read those, everybody can read, but those are direct bullets from the RFP. And again, summarized as I did. So the selection process for this, so we issued it on January 29th. There was over 200 firms on the MRSC roster list that were sent direct email solicitations by me. We also posted on a site called Public Purchase that Dana is more familiar with. And that's another venue for where we actually hosted some of the data and some of the reports that were available. And then it was also an opportunity for consultants to interact on that end. The responses were due on February 19th. We had 7. We ranked each of those 7, which were pretty lengthy documents. So a lot of reading, a lot of kind of processing. There were scoring sheets that each committee member looked at. And then we ended up selecting 4 for interviews. Those interviews were last week on Thursday, March 11th. It was a full day of interviews. We questioned council. We question the sanity of council member Schaefer for spending an entire day in his retirement listening to consultants, but it was a good day. We were lucky that we got it all pulled through, but we did provide ahead of time. We provided the consultants with some focus areas. We also provided them with sample questions, and then each of the reviewers had a scoring sheet that followed along. So they had some guidelines on what we're looking for, and then again, some recommendations on how to score that. We did do a completely independent scoring process. So every individual reviewer, and this was the same in the RFP, the written review, each reviewer scored completely on their own. So we had a different range of scores depending on the person, but they did all that completely independently. And then we came together once all of the data had been pushed back together. This is a qualification-based selection process. You're looking at who's the most qualified firm rather than how much does it cost. Once you've identified the qualified firm, you go into scope and fee estimate negotiations, and that's where you start to determine if you can make it work with that consultant. All 4 were very highly qualified, but there was definitely 2 that stood out, heads above the rest, really. I mean, that's one thing we were fortunate of, is all 4 were great, but our top 2 were really, really, truly highly qualified. And so we did have a difficult time kind of discussing the merits of both. I would say it was a razor thin margin for sure. But again, I believe that we came to the right decision as a group. So we met on 3/15. I summarized all the scoring to the committee on 3/12. So last Friday, we sent that out, and then we all met on Monday. So ultimately the firm that we did select to be the most qualified or most highly qualified for this job is called Architecture Resource Collaborative, ARC. And it's an architecture firm, but they're also multidisciplinary. So they definitely demonstrated a very deep understanding of these kind of projects in facility infrastructure, facility evaluations, also in really processes. So dealing with staff members and gaining buy-in, and also dealing with administrative needs and council mayor kind of relationships, and how best to build those relationships to gain successful products. One of their the things they dislike the least is to have a project or a plan that never gets implemented because the buy-in wasn't there. And so that was important to us as far as making sure that we build that groundwork at the very beginning, and hopefully we have complete buy-in through the process. So also some innovative funding ideas. So definitely one of their team members was well-respected, very experienced person in the industry, and they had some different ideas that we had never considered about how you could potentially fund, different design build processes, or if you wanted to construct a new facility or something else. And also they were definitely demonstrated some long hauler capability. So they've been working with some cities for near a decade on something that started off as an idea, and they worked very slowly to achieve little incremental gains and then ultimately get the whole plan implemented. So that is all the slides I have. Promise to keep it short. Let's see, stop share. But that's it in a nutshell. So again, tonight is purely informational. This is just so you guys know what our process was to date. ARC knows, so they're aware that we have selected them to move forward. I'm in the process of notifying all the other consultants currently. So I do that on an individual basis. So we'll be moving forward with ARC and asking them to start putting together their design scope, and then also work on the fee estimate. So once we come to some resolution on our end that we think we have a reasonable design, and we think we have the fee estimate that they propose, we'll do some negotiation internally before we bring it to council. And that is all I have.
Well, Sean, thank you. Nice to hear that you had sent it out to 200 firms, that we had 7 that put in for it, and that we had 4 that looked like they were highly qualified or could move forward in the process. So I was really pleased to hear that. Councilmember Schaefer.
I just wanted to say, under Sean's excellent leadership and guidance, I think this selection committee did a superb job. The whole committee was very on the ball, reading through in excruciating detail the RFP responses and the RFP itself, and understanding things at a great depth. The end result, I think, couldn't have been any better. I'm very, very pleased with the process. Very pleased with our selection.
Thank you. Any feedback from council members? Councilmember Langle?
I was just trying to look on their website here. Who are the principals in this firm?
The person that we're dealing with is Jeff Wandowitz. I'm not sure how to say his last name, to tell you the truth. Wandowitz.
But is he the principal? Or are there other principals in the firm?
He is a principal. I do not know if there's other principals, but he is listed as the principal on their RFP sheet, their cover letter.
I'm asking because I think I did a project with them, which is very weird.
Emily Wheeler is also a principal. And Dan Padal, he's also a principal. Those are the 3 they have listed.
So Sean,
yes, it is. I did. Yes, I did. Rex Bond was my project manager many years ago. They're an amazing firm. Good job.
Good.
Thank you, Dot. Sean, most of these companies, I assume, came in a team approach. So it's not just architectural firm says, hey, we do this work, we'd like to work for you. But they bring they might be someone that's good with technical review and data and looking at our systems, and somebody else that might be good at designing certain types of buildings. I assume that these brought a team approach as well. So it wasn't just they come with 2 or 3.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all of them had pretty large teams, really. And so they have, and I lied, that wasn't the last slide. I actually had another, but yeah, they had real in-depth teams. So they had different electricians or mechanical experts. They had financial planners. So all of them kind of integrated different firms into their team approach. So something that these folks had that we actually asked a little bit more on was one thing that was interesting is their space planning and just how they've kind of gone about categorizing uses and identifying adjacencies. So, you know, at the lowest level, trying to figure out if a building works for you, you know, who do you need to have together to operate more effectively? How do they work in their groups? You know, what kind of activity do they generate? What are their needs for public interaction, that kind of thing. And that was something that was really interesting about this group is they really had a very deep understanding of how they approached looking at that and evaluating that. So that's what some of this slide is about, is these different things they call, you know, den, hive, cell club. And then we like these nomads and squatters. So different types of employees who maybe are just in your building for a few hours a day, or people who are in there for very intense uses for entire days, things like that.
So that squatters, is that council members that stop in?
It definitely was pretty broad. It could be anybody.
Well, thank you, Sean. Council feedback? I
Laura,
don't see any hands.
Laura has her hand up.
Oh, Laura, I'm sorry. My screen freezes up now and then, so I apologize if I seem like I'm out of it more than usual. Laura, go ahead.
That's okay.
Director
For the
Thomas.
record, yeah, thank you. Laura Thomas, Community Development. I was thrilled to honestly be invited to participate on the committee. It was a tremendous amount of reading. I actually talked to Sean. It took me a while to get through it. But what I wanted to say is when I was looking at, you know, who to choose, the top two were, I want to say, within like a point. I don't even know if it was a full point between the top two, but one of the areas of expertise that I saw was Tom Beckwith, who is an FAICP, and he's a fellow in within the planning industry, and there aren't a lot of those nationally. So I think for me, he will bring a lot of depth to the conversation. So I just wanted to add that to it as well, because the other teams didn't really bring that portion to this planning process.
Thank you,
So
Laura.
that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Councilmember Lingle.
Yeah, I mean, principles and firms change, but the philosophy of a firm often does not change. And I can tell you, I've worked with this firm before. I've followed them professionally. This is a very, very highly qualified firm, and they have a tremendously wonderful way of working with people to build consensus around ideas. And they're also highly ethical. So you really did do an excellent job in this selection. I'm sure the other candidates were good too, but I'm delighted to see that they may be crossing my path again. They're wonderful.
That's a great recommendation from you, Dot. Thank you. I
Great to
know
hear.
you have a lot of experience with some of these firms, and it's so good to hear. Other council members or staff? I don't see any hands up. Sean, thank you for your presentation. Director Laniszewski, and to Councilmember Schaefer for participating on behalf of council. This is one of our big projects this year, and I'm excited to see it move forward. Thank you, Sean. We'll get to hear more from you later.
Thank you very much.
Well, our next item is federal representation. That is with Mayor Okerlander and myself. Mayor, can I turn it over to you?
Sure. I'll start off and say, first of all, thank you to everyone that reached out to share your thoughts individually. I know that having any kind of federal representation or any advocacy contracted out for our city is a very new concept for some. And I know for some it's difficult to see the value at the outset. I did get positive feedback from the majority of folks, mixed bag on whether folks are interested in going out for RFQ or contracting directly with the Johnston Group. My preference is to put a request for qualifications out so that we can get some more information for others that are still learning this process. and that you can see what else is out there. Mayor Pro Tem and I talked about potentially moving forth with a 6-month contract with reevaluation at that point, because this is new. But I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt from the National League of Cities conference last week that broadband infrastructure in cities are the top priorities in Congress right now. And so I think if we're going to get anything done on policy or have opportunities to get funding in the next few years, this is definitely the time to do it. So with talking with Daniel, our attorney, because the contract could end up going above 25,000 depending on the time, we'd normally need to go through a normal RFP process. We're working on a motion to ask council to allow us to do an RFQ instead of the full RFP. There are cities if we were to do an RFP versus an RFQ, because then we would have to choose the lowest responsible bidder, not have an option to choose which consultant would be right for our city. And that can create some challenges as well, because you don't want to necessarily just go with the lowest bidder. You want the person who's going to get the job done. So, Mike, do you have some things to add? And we're also happy to answer any questions. I know there are some council members that had further questions, and talking to Deanna Dawson, Executive Director of Sound Cities today in one of our meetings, one of our mayor's meetings, I asked if she'd be open if council members want to call her and talk about ask questions of her, because she's got significant experience in multiple areas working with federal lobbyists and was in DC herself. So that option is open for folks as well. So Mike, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I responded by email to your request and sent it to all the council. So I don't have anything brand new. There's no guarantee when you have a lobbyist that they'll get you X. Sometimes there's something so important you want a lobbyist just to go after that one item. But this certainly, the stars are aligning, if you will, with Congress, with the president. They're certainly bringing back earmarks, which means cities have an opportunity to have a project that could be funded directly. They work on language for smaller cities, at least the lobbyists that we spoke with. And similar to how we band together as cities in the valley here to work on things at the state level that benefit us, that same thing is true at the federal level. You try to band together as small cities so that language, whether it's related to cable companies and our ability to have a say, there's just so many different things. So I think that if there was a year to do it, this would be it. And I'm supportive of a short-term contract. Mayor mentioned, 6 months. For me, it gives us the opportunity to get our foot in the water, to see how things are going. I think an RFQ is appropriate as well, just to take a look and see what else is out there. I think that's always helpful. So I just open it up. Feedback, questions. Councilmember Naplin.
I guess I need to study procurement a little better, but for some reason, I thought you can do an RFP and consider price as one consideration, but it wouldn't necessarily be the only consideration. So maybe I've misunderstood procurement, but I would actually like to see a proposal and the cost associated. And I don't think we would be required to choose the lowest price, because we can look at it all. So
in conversations with Daniel, he said that yes, if we did RFP, we would have to go with the lowest responsible bidder. That said, an RFQ, we can put in the RFQ what our total budget is. And in the contract, whatever contract comes about, you can have a not to exceed amount. Different firms may charge by the hour, some charge by the month. So you want to have that dollar amount that's a maximum, and, really specify what you want to get out of it. But Daniel did say, we would need a formal motion from council to be able to do the RFQ versus the RFP. And to be clear, if we hadn't been a combination of factors, if we hadn't been approached by someone seeing if we were interested, the shift in the Senate, the leadership of our congressional delegation, combined with the other things going on, I wouldn't even have brought this forward to the group. But it's, as we look at the government facilities analysis and looking forward about the need for new facilities, most likely, this is the time to really start getting to have better city contacts with our federal agencies, especially the ones we're going to need to work with if we get funding, and build the groundwork that we don't have right now as a city to move forward. So the timing is not, is as smooth as I think anyone would have liked, but this is a prime opportunity for us.
Thanks.
Councilmember Langle, and then Councilmember Schaefer, and then Councilmember Brunicki.
First thing, I work with lobbyists. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just the way it is. First, I have a question, and that is, what specifically are we having this lobbyist work on? You just mentioned the issue of broadband and how more and more people are talking about that. Is that the focus or sole focus of what this lobbyist would do? Let me ask that as my first question.
No, it would be broad. So we have appropriations requests that we're likely to be making. We've already submitted info on 3rd Avenue to Senator Murray's office as she's starting to look at what projects people are wanting to get done. There's broadband, there's CDBG, there is infrastructure bills, there are USDA programs. So part of, besides just, some jurisdictions will go after one specific item. This is our entry into the door. And so the expectation would most definitely be that we're getting regular updates of what's going on in Congress that impacts us or that we may be interested in, that the lobbyist is scheduling meetings for us, getting us in the door, and making sure we're staying up to date on the latest, Hill talk that's going on. So it would not be focused on one item. It would be focused on the overall needs of the city, and trying to have impact where we can have impact. In short, that's kind of the short way around it. But in general, from the request for qualifications from other government agencies that I've seen online, really, you identify what you want, and then the lobbyist or the advocate will come and help you develop the scope of work, and you outline the tasks that have to get done. So at the outset, this is part of the thing, request for qualifications. You'll get a lot of that information in the RFQs.
Okay, then my follow-up comments. If we do an RFQ, I'm okay with that. My previous concern was we not just talk to one person, because I think the synergy is very important. Second thing is, I think we have to be careful, and perhaps this is part of what we learn in an RFQ or RFP, whatever, however that shakes out, is I worry a little bit about too broad an agenda, because too broad an agenda can mean less probability of results. Now, if something just happens to happen and, I would assume a good lobbyist would say, hey, nobody expected this, what do you think? And then you would be communicating with council. But I do get concerned about too broad an agenda. I like the idea of working around things that other jurisdictions or other groups are doing. I think having that constituency volume is better likely for success. So I do like that. I think that we need to be thoughtful about things like earmarks. Mayor, you and I have talked about this. I have a number of experiences with earmarks and direct appropriations that didn't go through process. And you don't get that chance very often. There's so many competing needs in a state. And so I would be hesitant to have that be a focus of the work, since I think there's other things we could be more likely to achieve. And I also don't think we've done enough discussion as a city on what we would want in an earmark, because earmarks are things you get like every 5 years if you're really on top of your game and every star is aligned. And so we don't want to prematurely go after an earmark. I really think that's something worth more thought. And I think I said this, well, I did say this to you, Mayor, and I'm going to say it for the group, is that I have a high degree of confidence in your ability to tell the Duval story. And in my experience, that is key in getting special allocations of money. And, you know, if you feel that you need some introductions, whatever, fine. But I actually feel that this is one of your major talents. And I've already said that to you before, and I've said it to others. So, but I did want that on the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaefer.
So, okay, I want to make sure I'm off mute. Let's see, a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, I'm very much supportive of having a lobbyist, and I think we get a bit more out of Jake Johnston than just a lobbyist. In addition to things I would expect, and I believe he talked about doing, is bringing to our attention opportunities that we didn't necessarily know even existed. That in and of itself is a huge deal. On top of that, helping us with the wording, at least the high level wording on grants and requests. Again, a big deal. As you guys know, words matter. And sometimes getting the right message across at a high level is going to decide if you're going to get a grant or not get a grant. Having somebody with that type of experience, I think, would be huge for us. As far as an RFQ or RFP or none of the above, I think I'm fine with all of them. If we did, you know, if we didn't do anything, I'd say maybe we just wanted to do a month-by-month trial with Jake Johnston. But if we do want to go for an RFQ, I'm perfectly fine with that. Mayor, on an RFQ, based on, say we get 10 responses back, do we have any obligation to select one of those responses over another, or we still have discretion to do whatever we want?
So I think that's a good question we can ask Daniel during the meeting when we do the motion, because there's some nuances there that are a little bit difficult for me to answer. I don't think we do have to choose, you know, a specific one, but you know, when you're, I want Daniel to answer that one definitively.
Yeah.
But in general, I think, you know, I think it's fine. I think that the reality is that we'll get a few people to respond, and, you know, I can look out and go through my contacts to find firms that are working with cities and reach out to them and ask them to apply. But we're small contracts. So I think we'd probably get 3 to 4 actually RFQs, responses to the RFQ coming in. But that can also, you know, open the door if council wanted to interview the other groups or set up meetings with them to see if they're a better fit or what have you. That provides that opportunity.
Okay, good. The related question to that is, do we have the opportunity, if we decided for whatever reason we didn't want to do an RFQ or an RFP, do we have the opportunity to just to try the Johnston Group on a month, you know, a few month basis?
Up to a certain contract amount, but Daniel has some good thoughts on that. So let's ask that question of Daniel as well, so he can give his legal opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Councilmember Brunicki. And then Councilmember McHenry.
Yeah, I think that when we did our sewer treatment plant, we had to go through a lobbyist, even though we had a very enthusiastic mayor at the time. And that, I think, was a very key component of being able to do the new sewer treatment plant. And then my question was in regards to getting the federal dollars. I felt as though when the representatives were meeting with us in the COW, they were sort of indicating that now was a good time to go after federal dollars. And I do, from looking at the scope of how things are moving up at the federal level, it seems like it is a pretty good time to go after those dollars. And those are definitely opportunities that you don't want to miss. I guess my question is back to the idea of, I think if you're going to go for the big dollars, and what do we have as far as plans goes, shovel ready to apply for these things? Because I know internet is definite need here. Does even City Hall or government facilities, would that qualify at all?
So it depends, you know, I think as Jake shared with us last time, kind of how things are being funded and what is going to be funded is kind of up in the air at this point. So my understanding from what I've heard as well at the federal level is that there may be opportunities for things that may not be quite shovel ready, because that was a big plus, but also a hindrance to the ARA package back in the mid 2000 or early 2008 timeframe. You know, there, and I want folks to remember too that, well, trying to think here, it's been a long Zoom day as we were talking earlier. Part of the, you know, one of the key things that's going on with the broadband, and which I think is an area that now is the time for us to get more involved, which may include joining some associations like NATOA, is that the agencies are going to need to hear from people, but we don't necessarily have the bandwidth to find out what's going on and track those meetings. And so this is one of those things where that'll be an opportunity for us to have someone monitoring that for us and let us know when it's time to jump in. Let us know when something's coming up that we need to weigh in on. And it can also provide opportunity for us to get others, cities to weigh in on it as well. I think there are going to be some changes in the broadband arena. We've already seen some with the broadband benefit program being approved by the FCC last month. And just the overall shift in the FCC board and the shift in Congress is definitely putting broadband at the forefront. I don't think we will be successful as an entity getting that declared as a utility, but I think that we might get a little bit of local control back in the next 2 years. But from my perspective, not knowing the players in some of those agencies, it's something that I can't do on my own, and I don't have the bandwidth to do, but having somebody that has the contacts in the agencies in DC will help us get there.
Okay, and I do like the fact that his focus is for smaller cities, because we have a very unique set of circumstances and needs that whoever is going to represent us has to understand that. So I'm supportive of that.
And absolutely. And I just, you know, just to add a little bit there is from the National League of Cities perspective, this last week, I heard more focus on smaller cities than I've heard in my entire time as an elected official. And that just really accentuates where Congress is putting their focus, and that they are understanding that it's our cities that are making our states run. It's not necessarily the big cities or the counties. And having that renewed focus is a good thing, and it's time to tell our story. So,
Councilmember McHenry.
I know we're running up on our time here, so I'll try to be super quick, or just talk faster. I was in a few meetings with the mayor for NLC Hill Day, and I would just strongly echo what Councilmember Langle already said, which is, you know, Mayor, you tell Duval's story well. You obviously have good relationships with people in Congress that represent us. And I think my biggest question to the mayor that I had sent her before and that she answered was, you know, we have a strong mayor, we have an engaged council. Is this something that we could really focus and organize ourselves and do ourselves? Do we need to go through a lobbyist? And I think I agree with how she answered, which is, you know, she obviously is busy with all the things she does. And it, you know, just for the longevity, that consistency of having one person be the in-between, but between council, the mayor, and, you know, the people that represent us to try and get some of these objectives completed or advocate for our city is really important. And I agree with whatever the quickest way to go about it. It seemed like there were some fast moving timelines. So if an RFQ is the best way to find someone, I do think it's important to not have to just choose someone based on price, because it's very much a two-way conversation. And I like some of the conversations starting about what would we use them for. But I think for right now, it's just that quicker decision of, do we do this at all? And then once we select somebody, then it would be a, two-way conversation as to what we go after. Because we may have a few things that we're really excited about, but, just like anywhere, there's going to be hot topics and buzzwords, and they're going to say, you're going to have a lot of luck going after this one thing right here. So I think that'd be a better conversation to have after we decide to move ahead. And also just to agree that a short-term contract, I think, is the way to go, just to try it. I'm a little slower to pull the trigger on consultants and lobbyists, but this is something I think could be beneficial to Duval.
Well, thank you. Well, we're down to 3 minutes. We had one more topic item, procurement policy. I'll just simply bring that back to another meeting for
You could
discussion.
put it during the council meeting if you guys would like. Or would you prefer to wait, Mayor Pro Tem?
We're still actually working on the policy. So I think bringing it back will be just fine.
Okay.
So with that, we will adjourn our meeting and we will see you at council meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you.